motor skills. Now, I'm going to give you guys a bit of a shortcut here. This is something that I think is just a useful little thing to do. When you're playing the bass, one of the key things is hands-on time. How much time you spend playing the bass itself is reflected in how good you become at playing it, in terms of the motor skills aspect of it anyway, let's say. So I've separated these two into a motor skills and which I'm considering to be non-musical, and then a musical section which is more about scales and arpeggios. So this is the non-musical section for you guys who are just starting. Now, the reason I've separated these things are because you don't need to have the bass plugged in, which means that you can put it in your front room by your sofa, just lean it against the sofa, you can go and do stuff. When you sit back down on the sofa, you can pick the bass up for a couple of minutes if you just sat there, and you can play these exercises, and you don't need to hear them. It's about training your left and right hand. With that in mind, the way I did it was I would put a DVD on of a film I really wanted to see, and I'd sit in the room, I'd try and get myself as comfortable as possible, have my bass on my lap, and I'd watch the film and play these motor exercises. I didn't need to hear them, I just needed to do them. They were something I could do over and over while I'm watching a film. So I was kind of using time spent doing something else to improve my playing. And it worked well. So this little tip for you, if you guys can do these. So this is the first motor exercise. Now this is one of the first things you'll play. What we're going to do is, if you can make sure that your hand is in this right position that we looked at earlier, with your thumb behind the fretboard, we're going to play the first note on your E string, which is an F, and that's right in the corner here. Now you're going to play it with your first finger. Okay, and what I want you to do is to fret the note right behind the fret. This is really important. It needs to be fretted right behind the fret. I don't want you to fret back here. I don't want you to fret in the middle of the fret. It has to be just tucked up right behind the fret, because this is where it sounds the best. So we've got the first finger, plays this note. Second finger, plays the second fret. Exactly the same thing applies. We've got my finger tucked up right behind that fret. Third finger plays the third note. Now if you look at what I've done here, is as I've played the notes, I've played one note. Once I've played it, I can lift my finger off it. You don't need to keep your finger on it. I played the second note. Now there's a bit of flexibility in my thumb. I'm not keeping my thumb in exactly the same position. I've played this note, lifted my finger off slightly, I've moved my second finger, and there's a little bit of movement on my thumb behind it to play the second note. Same with the third note. My thumb is shifting down slightly to play third note, third fret on your E string. Fourth fret with your fourth finger on your E string. So that's how it goes. Okay, now that feels fairly awkward, I know, because you guys are just starting, but bear with it, it'll become easier. Also, it's quite tricky to play this F in the corner here. It is a weird angle for your arm to be at. But remember, when you are playing this, remember this triangle you need to create here so you've got enough room. Okay, once you've played these four notes, we're going to shift it across, and we're going to play the next four notes on the next string. Same principle applies. Get behind each fret, each note. Try and make it as clear as possible for your left hand. Same for your right, for the next string rather. First four frets, same for the next note. When you get to the top, I want you to go back down again. Okay, this is the fretting hand of your left hand. Now let's look at the right hand. What's this hand supposed to be doing? Okay. So with this hand, remember I said you need to anchor either on your pickup or on your string. Now when we're starting and we're playing our first note at the bottom here, I want you to anchor on your thumb here, on the pickup, okay? And so we're going to play our first 4 notes on the pickup. Now you can just use one finger here on this hand, and you're going to use the top of your finger here to play the note. Okay? We're going to use one finger for the minute. Second note, third note, and fourth note. Okay? The minute we've played that, we shift our thumb across to the E string. And now that's our anchor point for the next string. Okay, the thumb stays where it is. Play the next one. Thumb stays exactly where it is. Okay, and then we come all the way back down again. And then back onto the pickup. Okay. Now you will find this tricky if you've never played before. It is tricky. That's why I'm saying to you, this is something you need to do a lot. And it's really good training for your left and right hand. And as I say, it's often difficult to get the amp set up, guitar plugged in, and to have it all ready and going there. So heed my advice, try and have the bass handy, and it's something you can just pick up and do a lot of, even without it plugged in for the minute. Now, your right hand, a couple of little things you need to know for your right hand. We have this anchor point, obviously, from string to string. Now, when we're actually playing a note, if we were starting at the top of this exercise, say from here, so we've got to the top, there's this thing that I would call it a rest stroke. I think it is called the rest stroke. But basically what we've got here is as I play this top note here, on my right hand, my finger comes to rest on the string below. So I'll play the note, and look where my finger comes to rest. It comes to rest on the note underneath. Okay? Now this is kind of called a rest stroke. And what this does is it gives you a strong note, obviously, because you pick the note. The string underneath is worked as a buffer, and it also mutes the note below. So as soon as I've played this note, I've come to rest on that note isn't ringing. So it's kind of worked as a buffer for that note. Also, when you find you carry on playing and we start to get to other things, it's always good to come to rest on the string underneath, because the chances are the likelihood you need to use that actual string to play something else if you're playing a riff anyway. So this rest stroke thing is very important. Now, a way of practicing this right hand thing as motor skills again is what we do is we're just using open strings here, is we're just playing the open note, and then we're resting our hand on this and stopping it. Okay? So if you can all try that. Clean note, and we stop. Okay? Then we go across to the next note. Nice clean note, and we stop. Same again. Each time I'm playing each of these strings on this right hand, I'm using this rest stroke thing. See, my finger comes to rest on the note underneath, the string underneath, in fact. And top. Now for you guys, this hand is going to be a little bit tricky, because as we play the note, to mute with your left hand and stop the string is quite tricky sometimes. I know it is when you're first starting out. I know it is from having taught lots of students, because the tendency is to play this note and try and stop the string by pushing the note down, and you end up with this or variations on it, and that's not what you want. You really need to just get the note played and to stop it ringing by resting your fingers on it. Now, I don't rest one finger on it, because then you may have a tendency to hit a harmonic and the string will ring on afterwards. So it's the flat of my hand again. Okay? You can almost hear my hand just coming to rest here. So that's something you're going to practice. We're using one finger on the right hand at the moment. Now I want to use two fingers. So I want to walk across the bass with two fingers. So we get this. I'll do that again. Okay, it is a little bit tricky because there's a few things to remember here. Okay, once we've played the E, we really want to shift off onto the, once we've played the bottom E string, we want to shift off of the pickup and onto the E string. So that's things to remember. So you've got the muting with your left hand, you've got to remember to move your thumb down. So you get something like this, as I just played. Mute, you move your thumb down, second finger, first finger, second finger. It's a little bit tricky. It doesn't matter too much at this early stage. I'd like you to just get used to moving between the two. It doesn't matter if you occasionally just miss moving your thumb down. I want you to bear this in mind. It's something that generally ends up happening after a while. I'll basically cutting your time for learning out, because these things I show you now, if you carried on playing for 4 years, you would end up doing them anyway. So I'm just starting you off and giving you a really good turbocharged start. Okay, and we do the same thing on the way down, but on the way down we're just dragging, okay? So what I'm going to do is just drag down. And I'm onto the pickup, so that's nice and easy then. Okay, so walk up, drag down. Okay. You may need to spend a bit of time doing that. It is quite weird. And the more you think about it sometimes, the worse it gets. You actually start doing this stuff naturally after a while. Right, the other one I'm going to do for this right hand, is really important right hand, is I'm going to start by playing 2 notes on my top string, like this, and then muting with my left hand. So I'm starting with my thumb on the E string and going all the way back down and anchoring back onto my pickup. So we get that. I'm going to go up the same way. Now this is slightly easier for some reason. You may find this slightly easier to do than the previous one. So this one's another one to sit and do for many hours while watching a film. Once you've done it there for a while, you can move it back to the back pickup if you have one. Play that a lot. It's very, very, very useful. Okay. So here we have 2 sets of motor skills exercises that don't need the bass plugged in. And for you guys as absolute beginners, this is vital stuff for you to get to grips with. It builds a strength in your fingers on both hands, and it gives you plenty of hands-on time with the bass, okay? With this finger per fret thing, once you've played it, you can incorporate the 2 techniques that you've used here with the left and right hand. So we're using 2 fingers to walk up. So use 2 fingers to walk up, then we shift it up a fret. And now my start note is the 2nd fret. Then we shift up a fret to the 3rd fret. And it actually gets a little easier as you move away from that bottom corner of the bass Up another fret. Up another fret. And so on, taking it up to as far as you feel you want to. Once you've done this, another motor skill, so if you're starting to get good at this, I mean, you can get good at this within a week. You can get these motor skills together and you can start getting good at this within a week. If you spend some time, just sit down with the motor skills exercises, even with the TV or whatever, get used to this thing, start building up the strength. It's amazing how quick this stuff can come together. Then we could do a variation on the finger per fret thing. We could start by playing the first note, and then we'll play the third note with the third finger, and the second, and the fourth. So we're going 1, 3, 2, 4. Then the same on the next string. 1, 3, 2, 4. 1, 3, 2, 4. 1, 3, 2, 4. Backwards. 4, 2, 3, 1, 4, 2, 3, 1, 4, 2, 3, 1, 4, 2, 3, 1. Shift it up a fret. Shift it up a fret, and so on. Okay, so just slight variations. You can do a lot of other variations if you feel you want to with that one. Then, when you're starting to feel good with this exercise, as a motor skills exercise, try this one. It's the same thing as a finger per fret, but instead we're going to play a finger, first finger on the F in the corner, first fret on your E string. Second fret is then going to be the second fret on your A string. Third fret is going to be on your D string. And fourth fret is going to be on your G string, so you get that. So this is good for this right hand here, because we're moving across the strings again in a rapid pace this time. Then we take it from the top corner, first fret on your G string, second fret on your D string, third fret, third finger on your A string, and fourth fret, fourth finger on your E string. Now these last two will feel very weird for you as beginners because it's quite difficult. You need to build up a fair amount of strength in your fingers to get these intervals to sound clear. And also you need to stretch your fingers because you need them right behind the frets. So you get this. Then you shift that up a fret. Remember, it's not about speed, okay? It's not about speed. That's a very, very important factor. It's about accuracy. The speed comes with the accuracy, okay? And the difficult part with this is to keep your fingers right behind the frets. You'll tend to find when you play this at the beginning that you'll be reaching really hard to try and reach this top note and fret it accurately. So it's all about the accuracy, okay? And this hand is where I remember these rest strokes. Try and fret with two fingers if you can, or try to pick with two fingers if you can. And remember to either be anchoring your thumb on the pickup or the strings, okay? And at this beginner's stage, these motor skills exercises will really, really get your strength in your left and right hands together very, very quickly if you can put the time in. The next thing we're going to look at is a more musical angle. We're going to start looking at some scales and some arpeggios.